We had a little taste of college football over this past weekend, but we really dive into it this weekend. We are just about 3.5 days away from Ohio State football. In fact, on ESPN is the primetime game kicking off Thursday night and kicking off the official week one of college football. Claire Crawford stops by from theozone.net to talk Ohio State, Indiana. Claire, how are you today?
I am doing so well. It's officially game week. The tides have changed. You can feel it. It's energy in the air. Even here in Columbus, we're ready.
Yeah, I'm ready for it. Again, I watched a little college football over the weekend, and it is amazing what kind of matchups excite you when you're just starving for football. So even the Colorado State-Oregon State game, I'm trying to think who else was playing that I checked out. Stanford just annihilating Rice. I checked out a lot of that game, just wanting college football, but we seem to have some very competitive and important matchups. And it's very odd, of course, Claire, that Ohio State steps right into Big Ten play right out of the gate, go to Indiana. And I know that you've been reviewing this game and the possible matchups that have been very difficult for Ohio State in recent years in matching up with IU. Urban's got all the wins under his belt, but it's been difficult.
It has been. It's been tricky. And as fans, we can get all this data and extrapolate what we want from it. Ohio State is averaging about 40 points per game against the Hoosiers in the last 3 or 4 games, but that doesn't tell the other side of that story, how many points that they've actually allowed under Kevin Wilson's offenses those last couple of years. And now, of course, he's on board as the offensive coordinator at Ohio State. But it's definitely something that I think anybody that follows college football closely, or at least follows the Buckeyes or the Big Ten closely, knows that this is not a gimme. And those Ohio State haters will say that, you know, they roll their eyes and think it's Indiana. But this has given Urban Meyer a few headaches over the last couple of years.
Yes,
there are some things to watch.
Definitely. So there was that game during the national championship run in which Jalen Marshall had to make a couple big plays in the kick return game to erase a 1-point deficit to Indiana at home in the fourth quarter. It was 21-20 at that point. There was a game, probably the closest one was the 2015 game in Bloomington. Buckeyes were the #1 team in the country and were kind of stumbling around and trying to find themselves offensively. But there was a shootout against Indiana, and the Hoosiers had the ball sitting at the 4-yard line when the game ended, throwing the ball in the end zone to tie the game, or with the 2-point conversion, win the game. So even last year, it was 38-17. It was pretty comfortable in the fourth quarter, but it was hit and miss before that. J.T. Barrett had an awful game throwing the ball, and so Indiana's been a bit of a thorn in the side with Kevin Wilson on their sideline.
And as we've seen in the past, where J.T. Barrett goes is where these games go. And that's not something atypical of a college football team. The quarterback is probably the most important, obviously, position on the field. But you can see games like that, or games like Penn State, where JT was not at his best. The fact that this is the opener and things are just now settling and being solidified on the road at night, it definitely is not cause for alarm, but definitely cause for respect.